new portion of Ata Tetzava, which is in the book of Shemos, the book of Exodus, chapter 27, verse number 20. V'ata Tetzava Bnei Yisrael, and you should command the Jewish people, Yikro Elecha Shemen Zayizach, and they should take to bring to you clear olive oil. Kosis Lamoyer should be crushed to illuminate. La'ales ner tamid, to kindle a lamp regularly. Rashi says, zach, what means zach? Meaning speed of sediment. Meaning the oil is not, it's the oil and not the olive that must be pure. As we have learned in the Menachos, in the Gemara, he picked the olive at the top of the tree, which was fully ripened and are easier to crush. Kosis, he pressed the olive in a mortar, but does not grind them in a mill, so that the oil not contain any of the sediment. And after he has drawn out the first drop, he puts them in a millstone and grinds them. The second oil is unfit for the lighting of the menorah, but is suitable for the grain offering, menachos, as it says, crushed for illumination, but it need to not be crushed for the grain offering. La'ales ner tamid. Rashi says la'ales, to make rise. It's used here to indicate that he must kindle it until the flame rises by itself. Tamid, one means continuously. The menorah didn't light continuously, but it means every night. When it's done every night, tamid, continuously, every night, it's called a continuous light. As we find oilas tamid, the offering that was brought every single day is called osio tamid, even though it was only brought in the day and the evening, it's called tamid, continuously. So the word tamid, as out of the Rebbe, Rashi, and similarly regarding to the pan offering, grain offering brought daily, is always called tamid. It was only brought half in the morning and half in the afternoon. However, tamid stated regarding the showbreads means actually it stayed tamid, that it was always there. The showbreads are always there. And they took out the week before, they put in the following weeks. So on the showbread, it was tamid, means it was always continuously 24/7 every week. In the oil mode, in the tent of meeting, the other side of the curtain, Asher ala edus, which is on the front of the Aron. Aaron and his son should light this menorah me'erev ad boker, from the evening until the morning. Lefnei Hashem, before God, chukas olam, this is an everlasting law, the dereisam, for the generations to come, meis bnei Yisrael, from the Jewish people. Rashi, what means me'erev ad boker? They come to tell us that you have to provide the amount to burn from the late afternoon until the morning. And our sages calculate this is a half a lug for the long nights of Tavis, and similar amount used for all nights. For there was oil left over, it didn't matter. So the main thing is that you had to put enough oil, like Hanukkah, you had to put enough oil to last for the amount that's obligated. The Beis Hamikdash, and you had to put enough oil that lasts from the evening, from sunset to sunrise. Chapter 28, verse number 1. And you bring close to Aaron, your brother, and his sons with you. We take Bnei Yisrael from the Jewish people, that they should become priests to me. Aaron, Nadav, Avihu, Aaron and Nadav, Avihu, Lazavi, Samar, all his 4 sons, Bnei Aaron, the children of Aaron. Now she says, after you finish the work of the tabernacle, we're now going to elevate Aaron and his sons. Verse number 2, Vasisa big dekodesh, you'll make holy garments. To Aaron and to Aaron your brother. L'chaved u'l'sifaris, for dignity and for splendor. Verse number 3, you should speak all to those who have the wisdom of the heart. Which I invested, the spirit of wisdom. Also is big the Aaron, they'll make the garments for Aaron, to consecrate him and to make him to make him a kohen to me. Now she says, what is the meaning of lekatshei ulachanoi? To consecrate him, that's lekatshei, means to initiate him into priesthood by the means of wearing these garments, so that he may act as a priest, lechanoi. So the katshe, he has to be holified to be able to be a kohen. The word kohuna, priesthood here, donates service. That's what kohuna means. Kohuna means an obligation, service. Where the previous verse refers to priestly status, over here it means in general, kohuna means service. And these are the Gadim that you should make. The Torah says all the Gadim in one shot and then divide it. Choishin, the ephod, he has to make a breastplate, an ephod, an apron, me'il, a robe, ksenis, a tunic, tashbates, recessed checkered knit. That's what kind of a tunic it needs to be. Mitznefes, he has to wear a turban, a hat. Ba'avneit, he has to wear a gartel, a sash. Also, big dekedesh laden nachich, and these are the 8 garments that you need to for Aaron and his brothers, Levanov, for his sons, Lachan Eli, that they become priests to me. Now she says, this is it is not clear. We have Rashi who mainly tells us what this looks like, and therefore it's an interesting expression Rashi brings over here. And choshen is an adornment worn above the heart. So there's a choshen, a breastplate, that was on his heart. It's different than the ephod. 2 different garments, actually, with 3 different garments over here. There was the choshen, there was the ephod, and there was the avnei. 3 different concepts. The choshen was the breastplate, the avnei was what the breastplate hung on, and then there was the ephod, the actually apron that was on his bottom of his body. Choshen tachshi keneged alev. Choshen is an adornment worn above the heart. Keneged alev. The ephod, I said, I have not found, nor I have found in any of the brises, Pirush, the description of its form. I said, I don't know what the ephod looks like. However, my heart tells me that this was agreed under him from behind. Its width being the width of a person's back, like a type of an apron called pourcent in Old French, that noble women wear when riding on horseback. The Rashi, it's a story that Rashi saw these noble women riding on a horseback. He felt a little bit bad that he saw this, and then he realized he saw it for the sake of giving explanation to this ephod, to explain how this ephod looked like. And again, this was an interesting Rashi. The Rashi brings the example of a noble woman that he saw riding on a horse. It's split in the front and closed in the back, because they wanted to ride on the horses, so they were split in the front so that they can ride the horses. That noble woman on horseback, this is how the lower part was made, as it says, and David was girded in a linen ephod, for which we learned that the ephod is girded as a girded that was tied to him. So there was a strap and a half shoulder belt that was on this ephod, that he tied the ephod, because how would the ephod hold on to his body if not this knot, this tie, this belt? You can see it over here, closer, the belt. It's very hard to see the picture, but the belt in the middle that would connect to the ephod. So that's, he said, it's impossible ever to say that it consists of a belt alone, where it says he placed the ephod upon him, and then afterward he tied himself b'cheishe be'ephod, which in Unkel's translates behemin ephod, with the belt of the ephod. That means there was an ephod, was like an apron that's open in the front, and there was a cheishe be'ephod. There was the belt of the ephod. It was attached to the ephod. So there was a second part that was attached to the ephod itself. The ephod is one thing, the cheishe be'ephod is another thing. That's all Rashi is telling us over here. The two, and this, it's impossible to say this is called the ephod. I counted two shoulder straps. The two shoulder straps of the ephod indicating that the ephod is one thing. The shoulder straps is another thing. The belt is another thing. So there was three components to this ephod: the actual ephod, the actual apron, the belt that was connected to this ephod, and the shoulder straps, half shoulder straps, because it only went to the top of his shoulder. Didn't go on the other side. It went to the top of his shoulder where the onyx stones was, and the choshen was connected to the shoulder straps. That's a separate part of the ephod. I therefore say they're called an ephod on account of the apron-like garment hanging down, because it's bedecked and adorned with it. As it says, "Vayafid leibay," he adorned it with him. The cheshev, the belt above it, and the shoulder straps are affixed to the ephod. My heart further tells me, a beautiful expression of Rashi. My heart further tells me that there is proof that this is a type of garment. For Yonis ibn Azil translate, David was knitted with a linen ephod. That kadut batrutz, a linen kadut, is similar to the translation of Me'ilin kadutin in the story of Tamar, the sister of Avshalom. For so were the virgin daughters of kings, where they would wear robes, me'ilim, like ephod, like aprons. Me'il is a type of robe. It's a type of robe, a me'il. Ketanus, except the word ketanus is worn next to the skin. So there was a me'il and there was a ketanus, undershirt. There was a me'il and there was an undershirt, two different things. Me'il denotes an outer robe, and that was the famous robe, the me'il. I get a picture of it. That's the me'il. The me'il, which says the type of dome-shaped hat, which is called a kufi. So he had some kind of a dome hat. Picture of it. Look at that. You see, everything's in pictures today. They know what the client looks like. Avnate is a belt. We're going to go through, the Torah goes through this, everyone separately. Avnate is a chagura, is a belt over the tunic, and the ephod acted as a belt over the robe. So he wore ultimately two belts. He wore more, you'll see. And he found it in the pursuit of putting them on. He placed the tunic upon him. He made a belt. Then he clothed himself in the robe, and he placed the ephod upon him. So he had already two, and the ephod had a belt. Big day Kodesh. What does it mean that they're holy garments? So Rashi says they must be made from mukdeshes or shviyas. They must be made from contributions. They were made. The Kohen didn't go and buy these things. They were made in the Beis Hamikdash for him. Verse number 5. The artisan should take the gold, the Turkish wool, the purple, the scarlet wool, and the linen. Now says those wise-hearted men who make the garments will receive the gold, the Turkish wool, the other, etc., for the contribution, so to make the garments for them. Also, they should make this ephod. They should make the threads out of gold, Turkish wool, purple wool, scarlet wool, and twined linen with a woven design. Now she says, if I were to explain the construction of the ephod and the breastplates according to the order of the verses, the description will be fragmented, and the reader may err when piecing the details together. I'm therefore writing here the construction in full, in order the reader may be able to read it quickly and easily. So it's hard to understand from the psukim. Rashi says, I'm going to put everything together and then read the psukim. And it'll be easier for you to read the psukim if you get the general picture. Afterwards, I'll explain the order of the verses. The ephod construction was like a apron worn by women when riding the horses. And the priest would grid it from the behind, opposite his heart, below his elbow. Its width was somewhat wider than the person's back. It reached down to his heels. The belt was attached to the ephod by weaving it in the upper edge. It was connected, the belt, to the upper edge of the ephod along its entire width, extending on either side of the ephod so as to go around the priestly body and to be able to tie the ephod to his body. The shoulder straps were attached to the belt, one on the right and one on the left, set apart from each other, the distance between the shoulders, because they had to go up to his shoulders. So that when we would stand them upright, made in the same material as the ephod, long enough to draw them to the level of his neck on either side. They folded over in the front of him, a little below his shoulders, and that's the way it went. So it went, as you see this picture, those are the straps. It made sure that it went to the top of his shoulders, and it went over his shoulder of the kohen. This had to fit him exactly. And so the right shoulder strap, the other left shoulder strap, and the gold setting, and then there was gold setting put upon the shoulders. The gold setting, this is that's what this is the gold settings, and the onyx stones that was written on it, the names of the Jewish people. And the two gold braided chains, and then there was two gold braided chains that were inserted through the two gold rings on the breastplate. And see if you have a picture of that. There was two gold braided chains, and the breastplate was this. This was the breastplate, something like this. And you see the two gold rings? The two gold rings on top of it. So the two gold rings on top of the breastplate. So these two gold rings, there was two beautiful chains that connected it to the top of the chayshen. Here you got it. You can see it better. And so attached to change the gold, and they were attached to the top of the to the shoulder straps. Consequently, the breastplate hung from the gold settings of the ephod upon his heart in front of him. There were two rings on the lower corner. There was also two rings in the bottom of the chayshen that attached him to around him. I don't know if you're able to see it. Can't really see it over here. There were two rings on the bottom. Here you can see it maybe. So on the bottom of the chayshen, and the chayshen, then he took strings from the two strings hanging there, and he tied it around him. So the chayshen laid upon him on his heart constantly. Lo and the lower that attached to the belt, the lower rings of the breastplate were level with the rings of the ephod, lying upon the other, and he would link them with a cord of Turkish wool inserted in the rings of the ephod and the breastplate, so that the bottom of the breastplate be anchored to the belt of the ephod, and did not move about, becoming separate, swinging backwards and forwards. Zav, tcheles, and all these five materials were twined in each other, into each thread. They would beat out the gold into thin sheets, cutted them into threads, and for them they would spin out one gold thread with 6 strands of purple wool. And similarly with the scarlet wool, and similarly with the linen, all for the threads of each material composed of 6 strands, and the thread of the gold was spun with each one of them. Afterwards, all the threads were twined together into one thread. Thus, each thread was twined with 28 strands. So is stated in the Gemara of Yuma, being derived from the following verse. They hammered out sheets of gold, and they cut them into threads to be intertwined. The gold thread with Turkish with the blue, purple, with scarlet wool. For each, we learned that the thread of gold was intertwined with each material. Masha Chayshev, I've already explained that this refers to the weaving of two opposite surfaces where the design on the two sides don't resemble one another. There were two beautiful sides there was a picture on both of these sides. Verse number 7, they had 2 shoulder straps attached to the top of the ephod, and it was visible, the end attached to the sewing. She says the apron was the lower part, the ephod. It was and the cheshav esay, the belt attached above on the top of the ephod. Similar to the apron of women riding on the horses. I should keep on bringing this analogy. And the priest, a second. The priest back was attached to the two belts, material like two straps, like two wide straps, each one for each shoulder, which he raised into two shoulders until they folded in front of him against his chest, and by their being attached to the rings to the blessed place, they were held in front of him over his heart, so they did not fall, as explained in that passage. They were also thus stood upright over his shoulders. The two onyx stones were affixed to them. One on each strap was an onyx stone on each one of those straps. El snake to two ends, meaning to the width of the ephod. For the width was only wide as the back of the priest, and its height reached until the priest's elbows, called codes in Old French. As it says, meaning they must rid themselves in the place of sweat, meaning not above their elbows nor below the waist, but at the level of their elbows. Very interesting. So the chubar, now she says it was attached to ephod, and these shoulder straps of the ephod must be attached below into the belt by sewing it together. The artisan must not weave them together, but they must be woven separately. There's three parts: the ephod, the apron, the belt, the straps. All was separately made and then put together as one piece. Verse number 8: and the belt of the ephod was made out of it. Mimenu yiyu. Zahav, Tcheles, the Chayshes is made out of gold, silver, Tcheles, Turkish wool, Bargamon, and purple wool, Tlashani, it's made out of scarlet wool and twin linen. Now she says, the Chayshev Afidase, the belt of its adornment, means, and the belt which by which he beautifies it and prepares it for the priest to wear. Asher Olav, which is above it, at the edge of the apron, is the belt. Kemaseu, it's just as the apron was woven into woven design, and above the 5 species by specified materials, so the belt woven was entwined design from its 5 materials. Mimenu Yil, it should be made from it itself. Mimenu Yil. It must be woven. It must be woven with the ephod, but not to weave it, weave it separately and then attach it. So it needs to be the ephod itself is one entity. Then you take 2 onyx stones. And you put upon it the names of the Jewish people. 6 names on one stone. The other 12 on the other stone, the way they were born. Now she says, according to the way they were born, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Dan, and Naphtali on one stone, and Gad, Ashi, Issachar, Zvulun, Yosef, and Binyamin on the other stone. So it was spelled out according to this birth, and there was thus 25 letters on each stone. Verse 11. And Evan Petuche Chaysin, he must grave the 2 stones with the names of the names of the sons of Israel. Shtei Avonim, like a signet ring engraved by a jeweler. Al Shmeis Bnei Yisrael Masubais Mishpedei Zav Tatzais. He must encase them in gold settings. Now she says, Maseh Chodesh Evan, the work of artisan precise stones. The word Chodesh is directly connected to the following word, and therefore vocalized with a patach. Similarly, you find the artisan Chodesh, stretched out lines. Petuche Chaysam, Unkel is translated as Ksav Mefurish Kegluf Yizika, distinct writings like an engraved of a signet ring. meaning the letters were etched into the stone, just like one who etches and seals a signet ring used to seal letters, a recognizable and distinct inscription. Al Shmais means Bishmais in the names. Surrounding by a setting means that the precious stones were encased in a gold setting, meaning that he set the location of the stone in a recess of gold of the same size of the stone, and he inserted it in a setting. The setting thus surrounded the stone on all sides, and he then attached the setting to the shoulder straps of the ephod. And then you should put these two stones on the corners, on the shoulder straps of the ephod. Avnei Zikaron. These are stones that are going to be as a memory of Bnei Yisrael to the children of Israel. But Nasa Aaron, and Aaron will carry Shmeisim, their names, the 12 tribes, Lifnei Hashem, before God. I'll say so on both of his shoulders, Lizikaron, for remembers. Now she says, so that the Holy One, blessed be He, sees the names of the tribes written before him and remembers their righteousness. That completes the Chumash for today. We now go to the Tanya of the day. We are continuing the 29th chapter of Tanya. The Alter Rebbe is talking about the concept of overcoming the Sitra Achra, overcoming the darkness that we have in our lives, and how a person can crush this darkness and overcome these darknesses that he has in his life. The Alter Rebbe says you can accomplish this. It's not something that's unaccomplished. Why? The reason is the reason why humbling the spirit of Sitrach is effective is because, and crushing it, because in truth, there's no substance whatsoever to the other side. That's why Sitrach is compared to darkness. Darkness doesn't have any substance. Because darkness is the lack of light. And therefore, since darkness is the lack of light, turn on the light. Bring a candle, or today, turn on the light, and you won't be in darkness. So to the other side, even though it's very strong, and it gives life even to impurity in this world. It always gives life to your animalistic soul. Nevertheless, its whole existence is not because it has an existence. His whole existence is a lack of holiness. That's it. That means it comes from holiness. So that means that when we have lack of holiness, the lack of holiness that we have gives existence to unholiness. So that we don't connect to holiness, that gives the existence to unholiness. But that unholiness also has holiness, because everything comes from God. So it's obscuring godliness gives the capability for the concept of darkness. Don't obscure godliness. Let godliness shine, and there won't be darkness. And therefore, darkness, Sitra Achra, is bottled to begin with, is nothing to holiness, because it is from holiness. It's like the nullification of darkness in light, physical darkness and physical light. But when it comes to the animalistic soul, when it comes to the godly soul, so you always have a godly soul. So when you turn the light on, you don't have to be there anymore. The light's on, and it's not dark anymore. But when it comes to your godly neshama, the problem is the Eibishter made to the gabig dush nefesh lakish ba'adam. Nasel HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'yishus. The Eibishter gave permission, so to say, for this darkness, for my nefesh abahamis, for this darkness, like bi'atz v'kenegda. That is the difference. Darkness and light. There's no darkness in front of light. But the Eibishter gave my animalistic soul chutzpah. He gave my animalistic soul who's nothing really. He gave it chutzpah. He gave it arrogance. He gave it, so to say, power. And the reason why he gave it, so that person would overcome it. So they should put it down. He should break his animalistic soul, put it down to the right place. So it should be nothing in his eyes. Sarusa the latatan through that allows a person below, he breaks his nefesh habahamis. Sarusa the leilo will awaken up a godly light above. As he said the pasuk before, from where I'll bring you down, says God, to the Sitra Achra, which seeks to rise. God says, I'm going to take away impurity from the world. Means that we take away the dominion and the power of the animal soul, and evil and darkness. It's taken away from him the power of the shus and all this rights, which the Abishah gave. God gave the animal soul to, and evil and darkness in the world to strengthen itself, to have chutzpah, to have this, to be arrogant, and to have disrespect. Neged kedusha for the kiss, which stands against the light of the godly soul. And when the Abishah does that, when God does it, he breaks impurity in this world. The Mele will ultimately become nullified. As the example of darkness that is automatically goes away through the light in the world. As we find this explicitly in the story of the Meraglim. The story of the Meraglim, when the Meraglim and the spies came back from Israel, and they spoke about how powerful this world, these people are. Begin with the Meraglim said, these guys are too strong. What does it mean, Mimenu? Mimenu, Rashi says in that story of the Meraglim, Mimenu means God. I'll take it Mimenu, I'll say Mimenu from God. So what did they say? They said that these nations are more stronger than God himself. After they realized their sin, what did they say? We're going up. How'd you go from A to B in 1 second? How'd you go from they're too strong to we have the power? How do you change your mind in 10 seconds? It's a little too late, but how do you change your mind in 10 seconds? How did they change their mind in a second? Moshe didn't see so many miracles. He didn't cross the sea. He didn't break it. He didn't send down the plagues. What happened suddenly? The second they heard how God was frustrated with their statement, they realized their mistake. That alone, that the Eibishter got angry, so to say, and God got angry, that changed them in a second. And suddenly they became believers in a second. When God said, okay, I'm angry now, and now you're going to sit for 40 years in the desert, they realized their mistake in a second. And they suddenly had emunah. They suddenly all believed. What value did divine anger have? They didn't believe in God's ability. Right? 2 seconds ago, they didn't believe in God's ability to take down 31 nations, 31 kings. How are they going to go against 31 kings? We still have that struggle. How are we going to go against all the nations in the world? How is it possible? We're a small country. We're a small Jewish population. That's what it said. We don't go to Tzitzel. So how is it possible? How did they go from we cannot overcome 31 nations? Let's go and do it. It don't make any sense. What happened to the 31 nations? What happened? How did we go from A to B? How did they go from A to B? But truth is, they didn't go from A to B, as the Alter Rebbe says. No Jew goes from A to B. Because Jew, even when he's saying, oh, I can't do it, he knows he could do it. The reason is because Jews are believers, the sons of believers. That's it. They were in their statement, we can't do it. They knew they could do it. But they had a nefesh habahamis. They had an animalistic soul. What happened was at that moment, the animalistic soul got the better of them. Begasis rucha, and this animalistic soul had chutzpah. Imagine such chutzpah. Not only to say we can overcome, they say the Eibishter cannot overcome. That's chutzpah. That's chutzpah. If you want to say you can't overcome, okay. you think small about yourself. But the chutzpah that even your animalistic soul say that God cannot overcome, that's true chutzpah. That's why God got frustrated. You want to say you cannot overcome? Okay, gesundheit. You don't have a good thing about yourself, but God cannot overcome. That's chutzpah. That is chutzpah. But the Eibishter gave the right for that chutzpah. And therefore, the second God got frustrated. And they heard God's anger. When God said, how much longer this evil congregation? He said, you're all going to die in the desert. I am God that has spoken. If I will not do for this whole congregation, if I won't do this, if I won't make them all die in the desert, the second they heard these harsh words, they were broken. They were totally broken. As the verse says itself, by Yisrael that the people mourned. They realized their mistake. They realized that their arrogance created an anger by God, and that's it. What happened a second later? Their evil inclination disappeared. That's it. And they said, we're going up. They changed their mind in 1 second. In 1 second, everything changed. And it was done by God in a way, in that story, that the Eibishter brought it down, brought them down to such a level. But Yisrael answered, why? Why is that? Because Yisrael atzem hey maminim. Because the Jewish people are believers. That's the way it is. And therefore we can learn from this story, from the story of the Meraglim. If he falls in his mind a doubt and faith of God, it's your voice of your animal soul, which is standing, rises itself against your godly soul. Of Yisrael, but who you really are is maminim. You're a believer in God. And even your animal soul, your animal soul itself believes in God. Your animal soul believes in God. As the Alter Rebbe, the famous analogy Alter Rebbe gives of the Zayna, of the prostitute, who the king sends to entice the child. The prostitute is doing his job, her job, and it doesn't want the king to it doesn't want the prince to sin, but it's doing its job. My nefesh Bahamas believes in God. It's doing its job. It has chutzpah. It's doing its job. It's given the right to the person to mix him up and to bother him. Sheker or mirman, the words of deceitful words, so that it may be richly rewarded by doing its job. That's the way Kipisa Azayna, as Isaiah says, the harlot who attempts to seduce the king's son, b'sheker or mirma b'shus hamela. He does it. She does it all because the king commanded her and is paying her for that. So she has to do her job correctly. Which Alter Rebbe writes, this analogy, not my analogy, this analogy is the analogy of the Zohar itself. And that completes the Tanya of the day. My friends, today is the second day of the month of Adar, which is chapter 10 to chapter 17. The Rebbe writes in the Hayei Merim, Rabbeinu HaGodol, the Alter Rebbe set forth a program for Chassidim of striving with their mind and seeking the truth. That's a learning Tanya, to critically examine one's every move to be certain it conforms strictly with truth and comes through Avodah effort. This Avodah does not imply as something altogether erroneously that one must politicize mountains and shatter boulders, turn the world upside down. The absolute truth is that any Avodah, any act, whatever it may be, is perfectly satisfactory when it's performed with true kavana intent. A bracha pronounced with kavana, a word of davening as it would be with prepared heart and awareness as before whom you stand. A passage of Chumash said with awareness, that's the word of God. A verse of Tehillim said with character expressed, befriending another, and befriending another with affection and love. The truth of the matter is that to achieve this calls great intense effort, meaning simply to study a great deal of Torah and to comprehend it, each according to his ability, and then God will help him to be that what truth demands. What beautiful Yom. I wish you all a wonderful day. 10 o'clock today. We'll continue to learn Chassidus together, Tanya, over here at the JEI school right next to Chabad. You can come there or come on Zoom or on Torah Direct. I wish you all a good day. Mitch, we'll see you all tomorrow. 8 o'clock, we'll continue the Chassidus.